What have you done?
Holy shit, this one is bad. So yeah, the news is out. The Jonkler 2 was not good. Now there were some clear warning signs, but I did try and give this one a chance. This is probably the worst movie I've seen in theaters since Jurassic World Dominion. But this movie isn't that bad, don't worry. This movie was basically a failure in every way, and I honestly think we'd be objectively better off if it just hadn't been made. Not only does it retroactively make the perfectly fine first film worse in some ways, but it was also a huge critical and financial failure. Like, come on, look at the critic reviews and the audience reviews, nobody fucking likes it. I think there may be some contrarians online who are like, yes, you were simply filtered out by Todd Phillips, the guy who made the fucking Hangover trilogy. Where the hell to die on? Also, maybe people who are just coping. It's crazy how much Warner Brothers and DC royally fucked themselves here. Since the release of the first Joker, there have been 10 films that feature DC characters released theatrically. Out of those films, one, yes one, I'm going to really specify only one of these films has turned a profit, and that was The Batman in 2022. Aquaman 2 just barely broke even, and everything else has failed in various ways. By 2024, there are only two supposed guaranteed successes for DC. That's The Batman 2, which isn't out for another 2 years, and Joker 2. And they fucked up Joker 2. If James Gunn's new Superman movie and the subsequent DC films from the reboot also fail, I genuinely have no idea what the hell DC or Warner Brothers are going to do at this point. They might as well just put the DC films to rest for a bit, other than the Matt Reeves movies. Now, what exactly caused such a lack of interest in Joker 2? I don't feel like speaking French right now, I'm only calling it Joker 2. Well, for one thing, it's a goddamn musical. Now, this wasn't exactly hidden, although the trailers were kind of ambiguous about it. I mean, I knew it was a musical going in, but I wouldn't necessarily blame someone for not knowing beforehand. However, do you really think audiences who liked the first Joker movie are also fans of show tunes and breaking into song? I mean, maybe some of them are, but you're already alienating some of your audience. However, this movie is also a love story between Harley and Joker, but Harley basically stops being in the movie for like a fourth of the way in, and it becomes a courtroom drama for the rest. Joker's either in prison or in court for 90% of the movie. There's almost no killing, no Joker causing chaos around Gotham, which they call New York in this movie for some reason. Gotham is almost always portrayed as taking place in New Jersey. I'm not sure where this New York shit is coming from. So not only does this movie give us nothing we want, but I don't think it even gives us anything that anyone ever asked for. The first film has a perfectly satisfying conclusion, and it worked fine as a standalone. I don't think anyone was dying for a sequel, but you know, the first film made over $1 billion, so of course you gotta strike the iron when it's hot. 5 fucking years later. These fucking buffoons quite literally had any studio's dream on their hands. They made a movie that pulled MCU and Star Wars level box office returns at a fraction of the cost. Deadpool 3 may have made more, but it had a way bigger budget than Joker. Even fucking Oppenheimer had a bigger budget than Joker. Yet for some fucking reason, they nearly quadruple the budget for Joker 2. There are no big CGI monsters, no fights, no car chases, no elaborate sets, no big cast with A-list actors. Either Lady Gaga and Joaquin were demanding handsome paychecks for this shit, or it was like some kind of money laundering scheme. Like, there are a few impressive sets during some of the musical scenes, but no way is this shit $200 million worth. Especially seeing as there really aren't that many great musical scenes in this movie to begin with, other than some cool backdrops. Hell, as I mentioned earlier, this movie mainly takes place in 2 locations. If anything, this could have been cheaper than the first Joker. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with increasing the budget for the sequel, but $200 million? Good going, guys. Anyways, time to talk about the actual movie. Now, when I tell you this is a musical movie about the Joker and Harley, you probably think this movie's gonna be fucking bizarre. And it was, but you probably didn't expect it to also be boring. Now, I normally don't like using the word boring as a criticism because I think it's way too relative. However, this movie's pacing is fucking terrible. See, in good musicals, usually the songs are in service to the story. They tell us things about the story or what the characters are feeling, their motivations, that kind of thing. However, in this movie, the most you get is songs that say I'm sad or I'm lonely, but like you could probably figure that out already. This movie has absolutely no reason to be a goddamn musical. There's a scene where the Joker and Harley go to a music class, but otherwise this movie has nothing to do with musicals at all. And these songs absolutely destroy the pacing. Every single fucking time a character sings in this movie, the story comes to a screeching halt. You just want them to get the hell on with it, because none of the songs in this movie are even that memorable in the slightest. I seriously can't remember a single song in this movie. Say what you want about films like The Greatest Showman, I at least remember the songs in that movie, and that was like 7 years ago. I just saw Joker 2 and I don't remember any of the songs. Now you probably think this is a musical in terms of Arthur and Harley's delusions and dream sequences, which it is, but it's also a traditional musical in the way where characters will just break out in song mid-conversation, like in other musicals. Like, this is through and through a musical. Most Disney films don't have as many songs as this movie does. This movie takes place 2 years after the first film and centers around Arthur Fleck, conflicted between being the Joker and being Arthur. Was this not already handled in the first movie? Seriously, by the time Joker gets to Arkham at the end, I was under the impression he had fully become the Joker. He no longer laughed when he was sad, his laugh was like a genuine happy laugh, and he would just kill people for the fun of it, which is implied with him supposedly killing the therapist at the end. Which I guess did not actually happen, because this shit is not mentioned at all in the movie. Joker canonically killed 6 people. The 3 subway guys, Randall, and Murray. However, only Joker knows that he killed his mother. The legal system only thinks he killed 5. So why in the hell is the Joker suddenly all depressed and shit again? Seriously, he's basically the same person he was at the beginning of the first movie. What happened to that whole descent into madness he went through? Like, the idea of Arthur fighting between staying the Joker or coming back to reality is an interesting idea, but we don't see that. The movie starts off with Arthur basically being back to who he was in Joker. Like, what the fuck's going on here? He was all happy and smiley all the time after he shot Murray and fully embraced being the Joker. And that's another thing. This movie keeps trying to imply there could or could not be some split personality between Arthur and the Joker, but that's not what the first film showed us at all. He's not the goddamn Green Goblin. The Joker is who Arthur just is now. There's no split personality by the end of it. He's the Joker, baby. But this movie is trying to act like there's some kind of difference as implied by the opening animated scene, which I actually kind of liked, to be honest. Did Todd just forget the movie he made 5 years ago? Arthur is the Joker as soon as he shoots Murray. There's no more Arthur Fleck. So Joker is of course on trial for the crimes he committed in the first movie, and that's a big part of why this movie is so boring. Todd, we all saw the first movie. We know what he did. This movie keeps bringing up shit from the first movie that we already saw. Stop reminding me of the good movie and show me something new. If all we're going to talk about is shit from the first movie, then what's the point of this one? Like, what exactly is even the story here? What keeps us invested? We know he fucking did it, so there are only 3 options. He breaks out and wrecks the city, which eventually, as you get far enough in the movie, you realize is not going to happen. He is ruled clinically insane and remains in Arkham, or he is ruled guilty and he gets the death penalty. So what exactly is there to look forward to? The romance between Harley and Joker? You know, that thing the movie just kind of stops making the focus of the movie halfway through? Joker 2 also has Rogue One syndrome, where there's shit in the trailer that didn't make it in the final film. I don't know if it would have made it better or worse. All I can say is, as soon as Harley leaves Arkham, she essentially becomes a side character for the rest of the movie. It was actually kind of interesting to see how Harley and the Joker would influence each other, and what kind of destructive behavior their relationship would lead to. But it all just fucking stops. Apparently Joker was the only one in love and obsessed, while Harley never actually gave a shit about Arthur. You know, the exact opposite of how it is in the comics. No, Harley is just some BPD whore who isn't actually crazy. You could just check in and out of Arkham as she pleases. There's literally a scene where she lights a room on fire and tries to climb the fence with the Joker, but apparently this causes her to have no issues at all down the road. Sure, technically no one saw her set the fire, but the room was full of people. I'm sure they'd find some way to narrow it down. Also, they throw Arthur into solitary confinement, and they just let Harley come in to see him so they can fuck? Was this a dream or something? Why the hell do the guards just let her see this violent murderer completely unattended like that? This movie makes it very clear that the Joker is heavily monitored to make sure he always takes his pills. Like, they check under his tongue and shit too. Then halfway through the movie, he just says he stops taking them. How? What, is he throwing them up? That's his super genius way to get around them making sure he's taking his fucking pills? He vomits them? Bravo. All of the characters in this movie are shit except for Joker. Sure, the original Joker didn't have super developed characters other than Arthur either, but they get really lazy with this one. The main villain is like this Irish guard who's just cartoonishly evil and nothing more. You have Harvey Dent, who just sucks. Both prior portrayals of the character, and mind you, I'm only saying Harvey, not Two-Face, were far more memorable. And Billy D. Williams was a background character in his version. Like, even when Aaron Eckhart was just in court, he was still so much more charismatic and interesting than the Harvey Dent in Joker 2. I seriously think they only called him that was for fan service, and so they could have an Easter egg with half his face getting fucked up when the bomb goes off at one point later in the movie. Harley is a wasted character, and by the end of the movie, you're honestly scratching your head of what even was her goals or motivations. Like, she wasn't actually crazy and just wanted the clout of being the girl fucking the Joker. Then why did she break a window of a store and steal a TV? Why set fire to the piano in Arkham? Doesn't that seem a bit risky? Then it's all worthless in the end because Joker decides he doesn't want to be the Joker anymore, and some asshole shanks him in prison and starts laughing and carving a smile into his own face because I guess he's the actual Joker. So what was the point? If Arthur isn't the actual Joker, then what was the fucking point of any of this? You want to know how I got these scars? I took the idea from some other guy. Just ripped them off. Now, I know this movie isn't implying that this is the origin for the Heath Ledger Joker because of the way the timeline works out. And I know a lot of people have said that Arthur may be too old to fight Batman if he's like 40 and Bruce Wayne's still a little kid. But don't give me that, oh, Arthur was never the real Joker. Buddy, the movie is called Joker. He refers to himself as the Joker. Arthur passing down the torch in a way is one thing, but just some weirdo in prison getting mad at Arthur for quitting and stealing the idea for himself is just stupid. Joker dying isn't the problem. It's the fact he regresses as a character and then just gets disposed of in such a stupid and asinine way. Why did it happen? I've heard a lot of people claim that the first movie appealed to the wrong people and this was meant to be like a correction. I don't necessarily think that claim is wrong, but I think it's more complex than that. First, you have to look at this from Todd's perspective. You have people cosplaying as his version of the Joker, calling black people racial slurs on Omegle. Like, it isn't just lonely white men this movie's appealing to, there are some genuinely controversial characters that have attached themselves to this film. The first Joker was already controversial. There was like this fear of, oh, mass shootings and violence from the inkwells. Like, you could probably count on one hand the amount of incel-related terrorist attacks that have happened in the last 5 years. But no, we gotta spread this bullshit fear-mongering. There was violence at a Frozen 2 showing though. I think really Todd just had his head up his own ass. He made a movie that got Oscars, $1 billion. He probably thought he was hot shit and could do something super ballsy and it would pay off. There's just a level of contempt this movie has. It feels like Todd's going, no, you're enjoying it wrong. You like Joker? Well, how about he kisses another man? How about I rape him? How about I kill him? Fuck you. Like, I guess the inkwell chuddy guys this movie hates so much were such a big deal it was worth trying to correct what's wrong with the first movie. Think about it. The people who love dark and gritty psychological thrillers with violence and crime, like, what are the two types of movies that they would probably like the least? Musicals and love stories. There you go. That inspires the concept of Joker 2. I don't know if Todd or Warner Bros. Gets this, but a lot of people who aren't deranged can still empathize with Arthur. I keep hearing the words, Joker 1 is about Joker, Joker 2 is about Arthur. They're both about Arthur, because Arthur is the Joker. Anyways, I just mentioned it, but before, yes, Joker does get raped in this movie. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, they just did this or that. Come on. Why would they clearly frame the scene in such a way that makes it look like rape? They strip him down, they bring him behind a short wall so he's out of frame and cut away. Like, if they were just beating him up or humiliating him, they probably would have just shown it. Joker was raped, or at the very least sodomized, okay? I think it's pretty clear that that's what happened. Does that feel a little too edgy? The first Joker movie was just as dark and edgy as it needed to be, without literally having characters getting fucking raped. And then after that, he doesn't want to be Joker anymore. What? Wasn't the whole reason he became Joker was from all the suffering he endured? Why does him getting raped suddenly change all that? Apparently he was molested as a child too, so this isn't even the first time this happened to him. I feel like something like this would only push him further into being the Joker. It's just cheap shock value that's completely unnecessary to do to such an iconic character. I honestly wonder if instead of having the guards get revenge on the Joker by raping him, they should have just cut scars into his mouth. I'm sure they could explain why he had the scars. The guards got away with killing a guy at some point in the movie. They could probably lie and say Arthur did it to himself. It would have made more sense for why the new Joker at the end cuts his own mouth, because that's really only fan service for people who saw The Dark Knight. There's no reason for him to cut his own mouth other than he's so crazy. The scars aren't something that all Joker versions have, so it's not a necessity. If Arthur had the scars, it would explain what inspired the new Joker to do it to himself. It already has potential foreshadowing with the scene at the beginning of the movie, where the guard is shaving the Joker and cuts him a little. In my opinion, it just fits the narrative more. Just randomly throwing prison rape in the movie feels overly edgy and based on shock value, other than I guess it connects to Arthur's childhood. The guards deciding to give him scars would have made more sense, because they could have been like, "Oh, you like laughing and joking so much. Oh, we got a joke for you that you'll never stop smiling from," or something like that. Speaking of which, the new Joker twist was pretty fucking stupid. This is the shit that makes the first one retroactively worse. So I guess this isn't the origin to the Joker, this is just the origin to some asshole that was inspired by Arthur Fleck. But Fleck isn't actually the Joker, it's actually this guy who was only in the background for a few shots. So what's the point? Why not just make the movie about this guy if he's the real Joker? I mean, he's still like 20 or 30, so he's probably still going to be old when Bruce Wayne grows up and becomes Batman, so it doesn't really solve the problem people had with Arthur Fleck being too old to be the Joker by the time Bruce Wayne grows up. Anyways, what did I like about the movie? It's pretty well shot. I did notice some good use of lighting and visual images. That one shot from the trailer where Harley puts the red lipstick on the glass and Arthur smiles into the red is an example. That's a pretty creative shot. The acting is pretty good. I don't think Gaga's a bad actress per se, I just don't think she plays a good role in this movie. It's a pretty crappy portrayal of Harley Quinn, especially compared to literally any other portrayal we've seen in movies, shows, or games. I liked the scene where Gary talks to Arthur in court. It was pretty emotional. It was nice to see how Arthur's actions affect other people, but damn, it's just more shitting all over Arthur. He lets the dude live in the last movie, and it's still like, fuck you, Arthur's pure evil. It makes sense that Gary would be traumatized, but it's just more hammering in bad things about Arthur. The first movie was a lot more nuanced. It didn't necessarily promote Arthur's actions, but it didn't explicitly throw in your face how awful Fleck is and how he's completely irredeemable and bad. And that's something this movie just takes away. I already mentioned I like the animated opening. Even though there are scenes in the movie I didn't hate, this movie just sounds unbearable to rewatch. With all the awful pacing and overabundance of pointless songs, I genuinely have no desire to watch this movie again. Especially because there's no payoff or anything to make it all worth it. It's a true shame. A true shame with how bad this movie ended up. It's not fun or interesting in how bad it was, it's just a huge missed opportunity that really had no reason to exist. I know that logic applies to a lot of movies, but goddamn, I can still enjoy Jaws 1 even knowing that 3 and 4 exist. When I think of Joker 1, I just get all depressed thinking how everything ends up. Sure, you can say this movie's not canon, and maybe even Todd or Warner Brothers will officially remove it from the canon, but this movie exists, and it can't be undone. This movie was a big failure, and I really hope we never see anything related to this interpretation of the Joker ever again, just for the sake of the first movie still being salvageable.